Hello, John. Thank you for coming back to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, so I want to remind the audience we are live streaming on YouTube tonight, and we also are simulcasting on X Spaces. In the description box, you will be able to click a link and go to John's website, and you can sign up for his periodical and sign up for a reading. We'll talk about what that entails. But please click that link, take a look at the website, and help support John's work. In addition, John was also on a show recently, and if you want to tell the audience where they could go to listen to that recording.
Yeah, I had Steve Kane, who's I think better otherwise known as Dr. Sky, has 77 WABC in New York. He does a midnight show, Eastern Standard Time. Great for me because I'm on Pacific time, so it's not really that late for me. So it was a 2 hour show, and it was pretty good. It's definitely was a lot of interesting questions and answers, as well as some things that we talked about, and was basically looking at Nostradamus's prophecies. I had set up a little script to do, and it was kind of like, actually, it's something I think we ought to do because we have the time that old dinosaur radio doesn't have, to really get into it deeply. Because I had this whole script, so I just had this idea that sometime I should, since I have the script and since we only touched a tenth of what I was really prepared to say, I think maybe we should do that maybe next week or something, unless something has blown up in the world that requires our attention. I'll be
Okay.
getting to that in a moment. But yeah, so yeah, just go to WABC, 77 WABC on YouTube and click on Dr. Sky's show, which would be at 12 midnight. So if you're looking for it on this day, if it's like it's the 11th, you look for it on the click forward to the 12th because it starts at midnight, which is the new day on the same day you're looking for it. It's a little dyslexic, but anyway. Uh, so, so anyway, yeah, check it in because what you'll see is a little box there, and you'll see all the most recent shows, and you just click on one of the show for the it would be midnight the 10th, and you'll see my 2 hour show, or you'll hear it.
Okay. So,
Actually, I would say this: a lot of a lot of your listeners to our show, Paul, were actually they commented. There were a lot of our
well, that's great. That's
fact. Hello, Kent. It's somebody I did a reading for yesterday, and he's watching, I think. And yeah, there were a lot of Rick and some other people were watching it, and so hopefully now more of you guys will come and watch it, and then
Well, that brings up a great point. Please click the links to the shows that we have been doing and share them with your social media so we can grow the audience. Also, click the thumbs
yep,
button
thumbs up, guys. Really
and
helps.
right, right. Exactly.
Push that thumbs up button at the beginning or push it at the end if you like the show. It is a very simple thing. I finally trained myself because I'm online all the time. I'm constantly doing thumbs up to all of my sources. It really the algorithms and they start going, oh, a lot of people are watching this, and then they give it more attention, and that gives more eyeballs and ears, and ultimately it leads to me not only sharing my ideas, but being getting people reading people on my private readings, and also getting more people to get involved with my Hogue prophecy reports, which I have one coming out in a few days. It would have come out sooner, but you know, since I've been doing this in some kind of media form as far back as 1983, and then of course it really broke out when I had my first best-selling book in 1987. So in all these years, which is a lot of years, I'm 70 now, all these years, I have never seen a year open like 2026 did. In 7 days, it had as many history-changing courses that you usually have in a year, all in 7 days. Yeah, I've never seen, I mean, 2020 really exploded on the scene, but not like this. So when the Roaring 2020s began, literally 3 days in, that's because that's when Trump decided he was going to kill the third most beloved and powerful person in Iran who was on an errand of peace. And they thought, oh, we'll get him. And they did some drone firing on him and killed him and his entourage. And when he was trying to actually pick up a communique from the Saudis, which was the steps that finally led to peace, a detente between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So something beautiful, but the American regime didn't want that. Oh no, we need chaos. Oh, all those people in the BRICS, all that global majority, why are they ruining our show by trying to kind of end all wars and get away from our US dollar, which is totally toxic, and sanctioning them? And well, how dare they want to have a world that's stable, a world where sovereign nations can buy and trade and choose to do business or do connections with anyone they want. No, no. You South Americans, don't you know that because you got the name America on your continent and Central America, that means you're ours. We gringos of the North. And so, this is I mean, what is, I mean, some basic things before I forget that are, I mean, I literally started writing this on New Year's Eve. It was things where I could see big stuff was happening, and it's 19,000 words I wrote in 1 week, 5 articles. I'm just finishing illustrating it all, but I mean, just read some of the titles of some of the articles. It begins Brace for Impact. Ukraine, by attempting an assassination of President Putin, has just gravely escalated the NATO-Ukrainian proxy war with the Russian Federation. The new year of 2026, perhaps the most pivotal year in human history, so I contend, will begin with a bang. And actually, what I've changed it. I actually brace for insights is what I actually how I started with. Like brace for impact, I said brace for insights. It's kind of insights. See, I'm already editing while I'm doing the show. Yeah. So I mean, that was huge that happened. And what it did is create a situation where the Russians said, we're going to respond. We're going to give you a demonstration. And with the demonstration, initially it looked like a few days after there was a lot of missiles that hit all the centers where all the drones and the drone factories are in Ukraine, and mostly up in Chernihiv, the northernmost province of Ukraine, where most of the 91 suicide drones launched in waves over a period of time from 11 o'clock Moscow time to 7 in the morning. And what's really creepy about it is that Trump was doing his peace negotiations with Zelensky in Miami, in Mar-a-Lago. And so Putin called in to check on how it was going. Trump said, "Look, we're in the final session, and I want to talk to you after it's done. It's probably going to take 1 or 2 hours. So stay where you are, wherever you are, at the phone, because I'm going to talk to you in a few hours." Interestingly enough, not too many minutes after that happened, the first drones started. You don't drive these drones into Russia, deep into Russia, without the CIA guiding them, or MI6, in this case, the CIA. So the question is, was was this another kind of thing that's happened last year where like Trump's saying, "Oh yeah, we got peace coming. We got the delegation coming. The Iranians are going to come and make peace." And then the next day, he kills all the delegation, and the decapitation happens. And he's on True Social talking like a mafia thug about, grousing about what a good hit that was. You know, um, it's a long story short, and I go into all the details of it. It seems that the CIA were either listening in on that, and if they were listening in long enough, they probably located where Putin was, and he wasn't in the Kremlin where he usually is, and where he's very protected. He was also very protected, but he was up in his a residence that's up near Valdai Lake outside of Novgorod. So this is way up north in Russia. It's almost same latitude as St. Petersburg in the forests and stuff. So it's very off the beaten track. But here's the thing. Um, the Russian nuclear doctrine got upgraded in 2024. And what they've done now is that any decapitation attempt on the Russian president, who is the only one who has the right to, start a launch, and or this a nuclear headquarters that has the power to launch, is considered a direct attack on the Russian Federation, requiring a full and complete retaliatory response. That means we're all dead in 72 minutes, as it's been calculated, when all the launchings go on. Our civilization's over, we're all dead, and the people who are living are wishing they were also dead, because it's not going to be an awful world. That almost happened. That almost happened in the beginning of the first week of this situation, and it's changed everything. It's the Russians now are finally getting it, that that they can't trust anything the United States or Trump does. Now, they're still going to be diplomatic. I mean, I've said again, I'll say it again, the Russians are the hope of the world. Edgar Casey's most important prophecy from 1944. It's over 80 years old. And he wasn't talking about the Bolsheviks that were fighting with the Americans, the Germans. He was talking about a Russia that would grow from their end. And that Russia is the Russian Federation, and the person that is running it is Putin, who comes up in Nostradamus's prophecies as one of the two eagle kings, the Alquilaner. And these prophecies are a series of prophecies that talk about two great kingdoms of the north. So they're up north, Aquila. Um, it's where an allusion to a classical metaphor. This is the key to the law of Nostradamus. You must learn how to think and learn how people played with words and stuff from the 1550s. They were not, That's the high Renaissance of France. So they were very knowledgeable in using Greek plays of words like synecdocha, which it means if I say Paris, I mean France. If I say the smaller, I mean the larger. And there's like a whole few dozen other things that they did, all Greek. And the other thing is that they like to talk in classical metaphors, and it's there's this basic. Let's see, I lost my thread. Let's see. We Anyway, they like to talk in classical metaphors, and what I gathered from those metaphors is that uh, the Eagle Kings of the North are Trump and Putin. And why they call them Eagle Kings of the North? Well, what's the totem? What's the totem of the presidential seal of the Russian Federation and the United States of America? In my new Hogue Prophecy report, I have the two seals. What do they have on them? What's the animal that's on them? Both of them. One's a bald eagle for the United States. The other is a two-headed eagle for the Russian Federation. These are the Eagle Kings. It's taken me, I said, I think in recent shows, I talked about how sometimes when I do this work as an empath, looking in the future, I get kind of directed to certain people, and I wonder why the hell I'm spending so much time watching the course of life of Donald J. Trump. Started in 1990. Why? It's just like the energy just say, just watch. Watch him carefully. Man of destiny. And then, so I watched him since 1990. I kind of became an expert on Trump. I don't know why, but it was important. But I always know that if it will reveal itself in its own time. I never pushed the river with this. And the same thing happened in 1999 when drunken Boris Bear, the Yeltsin, president of the rather half-destroyed Russian Federation that was in a terrible mess because of actually the way we were treating them, and they were following our advice, which basically killed about 5 million people that were on retirement because they privatized it, took all the money, and all the oligarchs and all this stuff that really nearly destroyed Russia. Here's Yeltsin. He pulls out this little guy, and it's Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. He says he's going to take over the presidency. My health is not good. And he was about a year away from, so he had a year where he was president of Russia, and he didn't even want it. He was like, I'm not ready for this. This is what Putin said. Well, that's because you say that. That's why you're ready. Because I have even family members in my cabinet that I wouldn't trust as far as I can throw them. And if I gave them presidency, oh yeah, that's me. What can I rob now? Um, and so I had to watch him too. And I've watched him since 1999. And it's only been since last year that it finally is clear because I had to wonder about Biden being the American Eagle King. But now that he's back in his second term, now it's absolutely clear to me that this prophecy, just like when I had that premonition about 911 and the Twin Towers, which was I was able actually to watch it happen. And I did TV shows about it for 6.5 years before it happened. And then ironically, one of the one that I was on Fox was broadcast 2 weeks all over the United States, 2 weeks before 911. And of course, rather than it making the Fox people, heads of Fox, go, wow, because I was on there with all kinds of Fox characters like Ollie North and other stuff. So it wasn't just me, but I had made this prediction and they had liked it so much that they made a special effect of the towers being flashed out by a small nuclear aerial device. And then as the flash is over and there's the clouds rising, just like the clouds were rising after the billowing out through what's left of New York Battery District, similarly to what happened on 911, you see just vestiges of the collapsed two buildings. I mean, it must have paid a lot of money to do this special effect. And then whenever they came back to what I had to say, they would do a shot of the two towers and they'd flash out. And because I've basically asked, because when this show was my segment was filmed in November of 1995, and it appeared in the 2 hour special across North America and Fox networks in March of 2026, not 2026, 1996, 1995, 1996. And um, and then I'm not sure it was rerun, but I'm starting to find out that maybe they regularly reran it a few more times, and the last one being just before it happened. And um, so I'm calling as the towers are on fire. I'm calling my contacts to the Sean Hannity show, which I used to be on, and the same producer was still there, and I said, look, I know you're on battleground right now, but you must take this in. We had a documentary. We saw this coming, and we even filmed how it might look. And it's would be great to have all those people of different specialties and stuff come together. And I mean, I said I literally, yeah, I saw it as all the two towers going down. I had to add that qualifier. And she was saying, and she was great. She said, "Yeah, okay, I'll talk to the upstairs people," and hung up. I'll talk to you soon. I never heard from them for 2 years until I finally found out that what is it about? What is it about people of the modern time? What a bunch of cowards people are when they just ghost you, when they don't have a enough of a connection humanly that they're not, or they're just scaredy cats. I mean, why didn't these guys say you're a freak, we don't want you on anymore, all that? They just pretend like you're not there. You could say a worse thing than saying they got their head in the sand, which I will not say. There's another place where the head can go, anatomically, which almost seems impossible. So I, it was Bram Roos who was a subcontractor, and I've told this story before, but for some people who are new, I just put this point off is that I had Brandon Roos who subcontracted to do Prophecies of the Millennium, which sometimes gets on YouTube, it gets knocked off and it gets on again. So it's out there. It's on and off, on and off. I don't know, it keeps getting censored, but it always comes back. And um, basically, I asked him, I said, "Why, Bram, why isn't Fox talking to me? They don't answer any of my phone calls or my emails for 2 years. What's going on?" Pause, pause on the other side of the line. "You mean you don't know?" "I don't know anything. What's going on?" "Oh man, you scared the CRAP out of the suits. Your prophecy frightened them so much." And then I found out, and then it was broadcast just 2 weeks. And I get the point that maybe Fox being so connected to a lot of things, they probably had people in the government saying, "What was that all about?" How did you know that bin Laden was going to do that? And so they were probably more terrified of the government reaction. I can't, I can't, I don't have objective facts about that, but I imagine there must have been something like that, just so what I know about Fox and how, I mean, even now, I mean, Sean Hannity is really, to this day, Donald Trump's chief advisor, unofficial advisor. He gets most of his stuff from Sean Hannity. They almost have it nightly talks or something like that. He doesn't read, he doesn't research. He's no John Kennedy that way. He would never be caught reading The Guns of August, the summer before the Cuban Missile Crisis. He wouldn't be
Well,
there.
I have a theory on this.
Okay.
One is that he's definitely street smart.
Yeah, very.
And he did go to an Ivy League school, so he's not
Yeah.
dumb.
No,
Right?
He's not dumb.
Yeah, but he has a lot of
It's just
street
a lot
smart.
of people that don't read much in those
Right, right,
schools.
right. No, no. So I don't think he's read a book in a long time,
No,
for decades, a full book. But
he relies on Fox.
I've never seen him with glasses. And I suspect that he has presbyopia and that because he's such a macho guy, he doesn't want to wear glasses. And so he literally can't see. He can't when I say he can't read, it's because he can't see it.
Yeah, because he won't wear glasses.
Yeah, I've never seen him wear glasses ever.
That's a very good point. That kind of reminds me of I heard that Wagner's mistress and then his wife, second wife, Cosima, who's Cosima Liszt, she is the daughter of Franz Liszt, that was Wagner's best friend. And they were deeply in love, and she wrote these incredible day by day writings about how each day was for the 16 years that she was with him after they married. Um, and I thought, what is strange that she went blind. And then I finally found out it wasn't blind. She never wanted to wear glasses because it made her look terrible.
and because
And so
he
she
had so,
literally
yeah,
was more important than seeing.
yeah. No, I think that's a big part of the reason why. So he gets his information through verbal. Everything has to be verbal.
Well, and TVs because
Yeah,
he can
and
get a big
visual.
enough TV
Yeah,
that his poor eyesight can deal with it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's weird because they won't even do it in private. I mean, if you want to, in a lot of people keep their glasses off as public people, and then they put them back on when they're not on. But this is kind of a deeper neurosis where they just will not wear them.
Well, did you see the film The Apprentice? He had the show The Apprentice,
Yeah, yeah.
but there was a movie that was made just before the 2024 election. It came out and it's called The Apprentice, and it talks about his early beginnings when he
Didn't
was
see that.
being kind of coached by Cohen, the lawyer,
Yeah, he was a big figure, really
Ray Cohen.
sharp character.
Yeah, and it's a good movie actually. I thought it was a good movie, but it did, if it's true, it really played on the vanity of Trump.
Well, his main problem, psychological problem, is he's a narcissist, a rather pathological narcissist. And yeah, over his dead body would he wear glasses, even if the United States requires that he do, so that he can read things. No, it's it's been a long, interesting time since 2015 when I looked at his chart and it ended up being a book, my one of my most accurate books of predicting what Trump potentially could do, uh, the good and the bad. And I mean, I'm quoting it after this. I start one of the articles in this new batch where I talk about Trump as, let's see, I'll read it. Um,
As you're finding it, another data point to prove what I was saying is that when he was on SNL, some of the comedians on SNL were saying that he couldn't read the cue cards.
wow.
But I
So
think
he
honestly,
doesn't have
it's because
farsight. He's
yeah, no,
short-sighted.
yeah, I think he needs glasses, and he's just not willing to wear them. I don't think he owns a pair of glasses.
Actually, I heard that. Now you remind me of it. Yeah, that he did but he was really good in those. That first one he did before he was elected, that's a
Well, I think
classic.
I think deep down inside, he's actually probably a pretty funny person.
Well, yeah, he has that side. He can be really entertaining. Before dementia started to grow holes like Swiss cheese in his memory, he used to be able to, he was a genius in reading the crowd.
Yeah.
He just could read crowds. Now he doesn't do that. I mean, he'd read the cabinet. He would now he's literally always looking down and his energy is very low. I mean, he did it one time when he was talking to Netanyahu, that famous or infamous moment of a press conference where suddenly he did something he never did before. He looked down, not looking very comfortable doing it. He's looking down and reading some notes in his hand. And this is the one where he kind of said, yeah, Gaza, we own it. America owns it. And we're gonna build something there. And it was like no energy. It was not the salesman, he said, Gaza, don't worry, don't forget about it. We're gonna fix this problem. And but it was more like, well, we're going to win. He never did that before. And then it just got worse. And by March, I went, oh no, he's got dementia.
Well,
It's
he's definitely
it's
getting older. He's definitely getting older. He's not. If you look at like some 1970 clips and 1980 clips, he was really sharp
oh yeah.
when he
But he
was
was
being
sharp
asked.
like that in his first term. He was and he was sharp like that in the campaign. I mean, he was but if you watch him a lot, you'll you'll notice, and I've even kind of watched some specialists on dementia and psychiatrists and stuff, and they're pointing out all the things that are, and they're even saying it's front lobal dementia that he has because he leans. over ahead of his feet. He's often, if he's standing, he's now doing that where he's leaning way over his feet. So
He
he's,
does look shorter.
yeah,
He
well,
like
yeah,
he's
that
short.
happens when you get old. I lost
Yeah,
about
no, no,
three
no, no.
inches.
I've noticed that his posture is such that it looks like he's shorter,
Yeah, well, because
and
he's
it's
hunching
even
over.
worse when he's right next to Barron Trump
Yeah,
because Barron Trump is like Andre the Giant. I mean,
yeah, he's
he's
like
just too
fucking seven
tall.
feet, you know. It's what happened to the Trump children? They all got bigger and taller and taller. You know. Well, you know, and Trump's tall. He was,
I
but
think it was, I think he clocked in at 6'4".
yeah, 6'3" or 6'4", yeah. And Trump, um, I mean, I got some interesting sources, and he's now doing a thing where he'll just have these huge farts in the middle of a cabinet meeting where people actually kind of
Are you
will
serious?
kind of
I
move
didn't know that. I
move
didn't catch that.
away from his backside,
That's funny.
and he just
Well,
there going, "Bleh."
well, you've seen that picture of Putin in The Beast when they were in Alaska, and he's holding his
Yeah.
nose.
Oh
Yeah, have you seen that picture?
no.
He's looking out the window. He's in The Beast with Trump in the back.
Oh yeah, the Beast. Yes,
Yeah, The
this would be
Beast
the
is the
limousine.
is the limo, is the
Yeah.
presidential limo. And he's looking out the window and he's holding his nose. And who knows why he was doing that, but it's just
Well,
uh,
Putin would not do that to be nasty or something. It's just not his way. But he might. It was probably because he's getting gassed out by the president of the United States. So, you know,
well, I mean, I don't know if it's because he's getting older and he's, has the old man smell or, what it is,
well,
or
no,
maybe it's the dye, maybe it's that orange man dye that's doing it.
no, 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 that would have come up before if there was a smell to that stuff. I mean, but all it is a suntan thing that I even watched a documentary once where he showed how he prepared himself and combed his hair and put that stuff on. And it's a spray. He goes,
Honestly, I think, I've seen some AI pictures of Trump, assuming that his hair was closer
yeah,
shaven, and he didn't have the orange look.
yeah.
He probably would look better if he just, even if he was losing a little bit of his hair, he probably would look better if he had more of a like a Caesar cut. He's
I've
got that
seen people do a
1970
Caesar
look.
cut on him, and no, no, it would look
Huh?
he'd look really old. And I've seen people do that, different hairstyles on him.
He
And
probably would look better with a beard.
well, and yeah, I look better with a beard. I look like I have like
No, but
my
I can see
throat starts here,
Trump
I look
having
like
like
a
a short, a short beard.
yeah. Well, I'm certainly all for beards. I don't know why. But the yeah, so I have I've been around dementia and I know it's coming. I can see it. I it's and I've also studied it and researched it, and there's some very interesting people out there that are really pointing out that he is declining fast. And the irony is if they hadn't had the fraudulent 2020 election, and I say again, it was completely a scam. 5 million ballots that suddenly vanished in the next 4 year cycle because everybody was looking, and they're still all in sacks, 50 sacks in 50 places in the United States. And I still like trying to lobby people, say, open them up and count them and see just how many of them are illegal. Millions were illegal. So anyway, the irony is that bad move to do a fraudulent election has bad karma. They thought, okay, so we'll keep the orange man out of the White House for 4 years, but all they did was delay his return 4 years which unfortunately put him in the genetic time window where the Trump family starts having problems with dementia. So, if he had actually done two consecutive terms, he would have been leaving rather than entering his second term, and he would have still been the Donald that had the instincts, look, could handle a crowd, read a crowd, because that all came. It was almost like it came in March, just a month or two after he was inaugurated. He started to be different, and I wasn't looking for it. It came upon me. I go, oh wait a minute, something's wrong. Has he had a little stroke or something? There's a lot. There's his eyes are not. There's a light that's gone out a little, and he's like reading things like this, which he never did. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, it's old age," but a lot of old age, especially in this day and age, as we were talking about, with a certain, shall I not name the thing, but let us just say the cure for the big thing that happened in all over the world has actually caused more damage than the issue that was trying to be cured. And one of the things I am seeing also, I've seen the same reports that you were seeing, I think, that it's early on dementia in the 40s is definitely happening since we had that global cure
Hmm.
that
You
shall
know,
not be named like Voldemort.
right. I just want to expound on this just slightly.
Yeah.
There's going to be three categories of this. There's going to be an ischemic category, which is the bulk, because you can have microclotting and microbleeding that leads to neural death. Okay?
Hmm.
About about 75% of the cases will be of that category. The next category will be something that is called amyloidosis. And amyloidosis is a buildup of plaque of misfolded proteins. This is this is like Alzheimer's, but there's many types. You got Lewy body, and there's so amyloidosis is the broad category, and then you have some subcategories.
Yeah.
So around 20, just under 25%, around 24.9% will be of this category of the misfolded proteins that accumulate, similar to Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And then a very, very small percentage, less than 0.1%, will have the prion disease. And the reason why
And
this
what's that?
prion disease is where misfolded proteins can actually infect other people.
Oh, God.
So this is mad cow. Mad cow.
Ah, yes. Okay.
So human encephalopathy.
Wow.
So
Well,
that
MNRA, it's kind of the new AIDS.
yeah.
When I was in the Oregon Commune of Oshos, and we were a rather sexually open society, and that was all during AIDS. We were doing all kinds of things to keep sure the people who lived there, if they had friends that they wanted to get intimate with during the festivals, there was this whole regimen where you had to have this orange bead stuck on your mala, and you go through all these tests, and for 21 days you can't come back into the community until they've done the tests and make sure you don't have any STDs or anything like
Mhm.
that, or AIDS. Um so we were really protecting ourselves, but yeah, it's the world doesn't do that. And the problem with this is MNRA does a similar thing. I mean, if you get intimate with someone, it would probably be important to wear a condom, like we did, and not kiss because the saliva might have MNRA in it. Fortunately, I'm old enough where I'm not really dating or doing much of that anymore. But I remember one time I was eating with a friend, and he had passed me over a biscuit that he'd bit into. And then I had to stop because I think, and I kind of just put it down and I got around the conversation and just said, uh, did you get vaccinated? Yeah. I said, "Oh, okay." Because yeah, it would be if I were dating, I would have to ask the woman, have you had a booster?
There will
I
be.
will not get intimate with anyone who has, or share food or share water or anything like that, like we did on the ranch with AIDS.
All right, all right. See here the mode of action or the mechanism of those three categories I was mentioning, a big part of it is inflammation.
Hmm.
And what's happening is people have this chronic inflammation because of the genomic integration or the high production of the proteins, the plasma that has been found in the actual vials. That's part of the manufacturing of the inoculation. So people are having this inflammation at the vascular level near the neurons. So your brain is perfused, right? But if you have leakage, if you have the microbleeding, or if you have microclotting because of inflammation, then the nutrients aren't there for the neuron, and the neuron will die. So that's why the bulk of the cases will be a slow. This is what you're seeing. This is a slow neural death that will lead to forgetting, and then eventually, cognitive dysfunction, movement issues, gait issues.
Wow.
But this chronic inflammation with other individuals, what happens is that there's a enzyme within our cells that will allow for the cell to break up misfolded proteins. We make lots of proteins, but sometimes, for whatever reason, it misfolds, and the body has a mechanism to get rid of them.
Hmm.
But when those enzymes aren't working properly, it can't clear the misfolded proteins, and those misfolded proteins have a certain shape that likes to stick to other proteins that are misfolded.
The plaque, what they call the
Right.
plaque.
This
Yeah.
will build up a plaque.
Hmm.
And so the thicker the plaque, the more layers of the plaque, the harder it is for the proteolytic enzymes to break up the misfolded proteins. And eventually it reaches a crescendo, and you you have neural death. So so people aren't realizing that this inflammation is leading to so many people that are having this cognitive dysfunction. I'll tell you,
And early in their
yes,
40s.
yes,
I
it's
mean, this plaque issue before you talked about
yes.
the other thing that shall not be named, um, and the cure for it, that I've also in all my watching things and studying and looking at the world, I have seen all this stuff coming up about all this plaque that people are getting in their brains. Some people, like the brain surgeon, who was the main in Trump's first term. He's the brain
Oh,
surgeon that
Ben,
Ben,
yeah,
yeah,
Carson.
Ben Carson. I mean, he's been trying to put together a study to find, are there places, because his mother was his pillar of strength, kind of really close to her, and she went down with Alzheimer's, and so he's been quietly trying to find, okay, we're seeing a lot of plastic in people's brains. And
Yep.
is there a way,
Yeah.
yeah, is there a way, because we're the plastic society, and he's wondering if that seems to increase the problem of the,
Well, that's interesting because if you think about the lipid nanoparticle,
yeah,
that right, that is a polymer. It's called PEG 2000, but to make it, it's really a polymer. Well, I would put it in the category of a nanoplastic.
well, Ben Carson's quite a genius, and he
Right.
that got me going. I started to think. about that. And then
Yeah, there was a research study that came out, and that they took biopsies of individuals, different tissues, right? That individuals that passed away.
yeah,
So, and they took tissue samples, and analyzed, and they found that there was a correlation, a high correlation of micro and nanoplastic higher concentrations in the brain with individuals that had dementia before they passed away. But nanoplastics are also accumulating in the heart,
yeah,
in the
it's
kidney,
all over the body,
yeah, in the liver,
But
right?
the difficulty, I watched Carson talk about all this because what he did is he sent out doctors around the world to find in the records of different peoples if there was a group of people that had very little dementia happening. So he was thinking, well, maybe it's diet, maybe things like that. So what he came to understand is there's this blue flower in the Himalaya foothills in Nepal, and there was this valley where people they put it in a tea, which is made of the honey that the little Nepalese guy has to climb up the tree and use a certain kind of cedar honey or something like that. And then they used to have a honey tea that they made there, and everybody drank it all the time with a little this bluish yellow kind of tea. And it shows, and it's just this. He's trying to find it in other honeys, wild honeys, but it's just in this area, so there's not a lot of it. And so he's created pills to and it was the hardest thing he had to do was find a way to get uh, something to digest that's sitting in the brain. And so much of the brain kind of keeps out a lot of things from the
Right.
brain, but
The
he
brain
found a
barrier.
way. And so that it would, according to him, it would clear out all the plastic in the brain and the rest of the body too. It's doing that as
Well,
well.
I
And
bet.
and I must say, it was a very interesting bunch of people that were talking about it. One of them was the guy who played Hannibal Lecter, the famous British actor, Welsh actor. Apparently, he was talking and saying, and I noticed that of late he was getting a little dull, and then he's like spry again, and he won an Academy Award for the last movie he was in, and he was like looking a lot more active and sharp, and he was saying it's because of these pills. Because he said,
Huh.
yeah, I was losing it, and
This is Ben Carson's working on this.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this. I'll look
And
at.
then what also got me kind of surprised about it is how big pharma is. If you do online AI to see anything, you just try the AI. Oh, this is not proved. This is rare. And it's like big pharma's freaking out about this. Yeah, and they're trying to like shut him down
Well, I'll
and
tell you what. The next, these big pharma companies, they have to find the billion-dollar drug, right? They don't. They don't.
well,
They
that's
don't
what he
focus
said.
on anything that's what they call orphan diseases, right?
Well, and you know
And,
why? He actually he went to them first and said, "No, we can't make money off of this because if this is a flower, it's not like something we artificially made that we can make and then make profit. You want to just make some natural thing and sell it. We won't make any money, so we're not interested." So you went big pharma, and they were, "Nah, we don't want
well, they
that.
would
We're
prefer.
sickness
But I was going to
industrial
take it one
complex.
step.
We
I
don't
was
want
going
to
to take.
really cure people."
Right. Well, I was going to take it one step further. The big pharma wants individuals to continue on the path of the dementia, so they get on these, harder drugs
Yep.
to try to treat it, which they are not
Carson's
very
talk
effective.
of it was devastating. He just spelled it all out.
Yeah, yeah.
It was exactly that. I mean, if ever there was a witness, what Carson was saying on that video, um, that the sickness industrial complex is indeed that's what it is. It's not about healing, it's about making money off of disease. A lot of money. And patenting it and making sure you get this and that. But like I said, no, we're not interested at all. Those little flowers and that honey, we can't copyright that. Get out of our office. Don't bother us with this. So he did it on his own.
Well, I don't know if I don't know the name of the book, but there's a book out there. Supposedly it was buried. Now, I think this is a Jewish folklore, but it may be a medieval folklore, right? But but there's a book that was buried, and supposedly it had remedies for all the ailments of the human body. But it was so powerful that it was buried, and no one knows where it's buried. All right.
Mm.
Okay, so let's just, so that's
Yeah.
just folklore. But getting to the science of this, humans, all creatures, evolved in an environment. And so there are things in the environment for the ecosystem to work that if you know the right way to manipulate it, making a tea with this, or mixing it with an herb of this or whatever. But if you understood this fine balance, you will probably be able to mitigate many diseases, maybe even cure them.
Yeah.
And you can almost see this when you look at the microenvironment of bacteria and fungi and how they coexist. If you look at like the actual network within a forest in just, let's say, 50 feet, square feet, all right, in a forest,
Mm.
how much complexity that is going on in the soil with different microbes.
Yeah.
And so that's just soil in a
Yeah.
forest,
Yeah.
right? So there's something there that if we had just and maybe AI will help us with this, but if we had a better insight of this network of our surroundings, of the ecosystem, that we probably will be able to mitigate many of the diseases we have.
Well, and then also, as I've said before, from all this last 5 months of using AI to a level I had never used before, but applying my 52 years of study on Nostradamus and his language and all of that, um, I discovered that AI is a marvelous servant if you don't seek AI to educate you about what's really going on. If you come to AI already educated, otherwise, AI is also like a tricky little demon. All those algorithms are constantly, you get something going, then suddenly it says, well, why don't you try? Yeah, I know this is working well, but why don't you do it this way? And it's like, because it's programmed to keep you going, going, going. And then, the way I got out of that is I fired all those algorithms and I found Gemini and a few other good programs which are more stable and they could do the same job that I was doing, kind of just going in there to all the different programs, but they were all competing. Look at me, look at me. And there was a chaos. It was like it was a bunch of demons in the in the lower astral, trying to be mischievous and all of that. And so, but I had to evolve. Now I have the systems that are more stable to do the translating. It's too complicated to get into how it all happens, but I learned a lot from it. I learned that it's very important when I do my essay about the future of all this in a book that I'm putting together of essays, prophetic essays. Um, it's we've really got to find a way to uh, retain our mastery of our knowledge and not surrender it, not be some adolescent point of view where you just walk in and think, oh, the machine's going to teach me how to think, how to feel. It's going to really tell me, all these AI documentaries on World War II or World War One or the Napoleonic era. And, I've gone in some of these AI driven things, like what happened in Mount Pelée in Martinique, when it had this huge eruption. And the human beings must not be watching what they're doing. I would think there is a great future for anybody who has the knowledge of history to correct the AI. Like what they were doing is they were all the people were walking down the Caribbean all in one way, all walking down towards the volcano, which people never do. And then every once in a while, their clothes would jump a century and then jump this way. And then, or it's like some of these, I watched this Napoleonic battlefield reenactment, and suddenly there were some of them wearing the right uniforms, and other people were wearing like a helmet from World War II. You and it's just god awful.
Well, they
But
have a term for it, and it's called AI slop.
yeah, well,
You know,
that's what it is.
and it's sad because I used to watch quite a few historical documentaries from YouTube. I
Yeah, they're being
stopped
picked out by
watching,
these.
yeah, because it's just there's
So
so
I.
many of these AI slop videos that are generated now that it's very hard to find something good.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it just happened about a few months ago.
yeah,
It was otherwise I was able to find all kinds of even documentaries I never imagined had been done, and they were just replaying those, and they were marvelous, and made it so much fun. And then suddenly these dopey things started happening. And then the other weird thing, I almost got caught in it. Now there's this thing going on just a few weeks now where some of my sources, like Yanis Christoforou, well, that's not him, Yanis, anyway, he's a Greek, he was the famous minister of finance that tried to go up against the euro when they tried to shut down Greece, Yanis. Um, I'm watching him and I'm thinking, there's something funny about this. It sounds like him. It sounds, but he'll be talking and be going like this and then going like this, and he's moving exactly right. But there's a quality of his lips that are a little fuzzy in their movement that I don't see people doing.
it's
But it's
happening to Schmearsheimer too.
I
Someone's
know it's happening.
guiding.
Yeah, I know that was the next one. I was watching Mearsheimer, and but there's a key, and I'm actually going to write some essays about you. There's a key how you can know it's fake. Like if this was John Hogue and I was a fake John Hogue, I would be talking and talking like this, and it seems fine, and then I will be talking like this and go and then you'll be this little that I don't do. Um, and and then what happened? Janos actually, he said, I was watching it for 7 minutes. I said, did I say that? Did I do that? So he was even caught in it more, and it's his own image. And and but these little jerks that happen, or there was this other guy who was doing it one gesture all the time. Talk, 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 talk. So little hiccups. And also the quality of the shutter speed of the lips is just too like,
Right.
and that's another tell. And the other thing is, if you watch such people all the time, you know there's something wrong. I mean, at first I said, what? I even put a couple of them down in some notes. I was going to look at them
Well,
further,
the AI
but
is
I
also
was like, wait a minute, I'm
capturing.
not sure I really was, that was John Mearsheimer.
Well, what I noticed is that if you watch someone long enough, you'll notice that they have certain pauses or the way
That's
they
what
do
I'm
their
talking about.
sentence structure. And
Yeah,
the way they speak, it's just there's a little bit of a pause between certain
yeah,
words or the way they pronounce the word or whatever.
yeah,
And it's when you see these AI generated versions, they're just too perfect.
yeah.
There's not,
Too
there's,
clean.
yeah, too clean. Yeah, yeah.
Or they'll do some little jerk or something like that, or they'll then try
Or
to say
sometimes
this
they
and
repeat.
do this
They'll
and go
do-
on,
If you'll
and then
notice, sometimes they'll go into like almost like a logical do loop, and
yeah,
they
it's a do
repeat
loop.
a sentence. Or
Yeah, they will, and then they'll go and then they hope you don't notice that he's
well,
doing
what's
exactly that.
weird? But what's weird about these types of videos, and I think they're doing it on purpose, but maybe they're not. It almost puts you in like an alpha wave, and it's
Yeah,
like
it's
it like
hypnotic. It
sucks
is
you
quite
in like
hypnotic.
it's strange. So
Yeah,
think about this in terms of propaganda now.
oof,
The the technologies for
nightmare.
propaganda are where they can literally steal the identity of an individual.
Propaganda's greatest ally is the collapse of real education and critical thinking.
Yeah.
It's actually made with these technologies. these mischief makers. God, if Goebbels were alive today, saying, why didn't I get incarnated in this time? Now I can really manipulate people with my propaganda, you know, because, and I saw it, I saw it happening slowly after the mid 1970s that some folks in power realized what a bad thing it was that the United States had civics classes, and that kids in my day when we were growing up in high school and stuff, we knew our rights. And so many of them went on the streets to protest and say, look, the Constitution says you got to declare war. So you can't draft me. I can burn this draft card because Congress has not allowed the president to do the proper procedure. He did that Gulf of Tonkin thing, which was not in the Constitution. Somebody should have said, no, we have to have a formal declaration of war on Vietnam. That's how we do it. But we haven't done that since Roosevelt, on the 8th of December, 1941, convened both houses of Congress to ask for a declaration of war from the U.S. Congress against the Empire of Japan. And then Hitler, his most stupid move of many stupid moves, the day later declares war on the United States, which he didn't have to do. Wasn't even in the tripartite treaty. Japan chose to go to war with the United States. It was not attacked by the United States, and he could have just said, "Well, good luck with that, Imperial Japan. That's not what we signed up to." But I think his reasoning was that he had the similar bias the Japanese had of us being an indolent, kind of degenerate society, and he thought it mainly because we had too many black people and too many Jews, Hitler and his racism. And but I mean, that's kind of dumb because everybody knew in those days that America's ability as an industrial power to manufacture was equally as impressive as China's is now. And it's funny how long it took for here's these idiot senators and like Mitt Romney made millions destroying our industrial base and just handing it over to China, who kind of went, well, okay, thanks, I'll use this. It's not their fault. I don't blame the Chinese at all. I mean, it'd be these people, these idiots who get up and say, "Oh, well, China stole our industrial base." No, you idiots, you gave it away. And so don't look in the mirror. Look at who the real idiot is, and then snap out of it. I hope you can, because I mean, if one of this, these are the things are the structural end of many things are going to happen in 2026 because because this is the year where all the bad habits of the last 50 or 80 years since we kind of got into being this superpower hegemon, uh, reaching its peak in 1990 through, into just recently. And now we're going to go down much faster as an empire than Rome did because we live in fast-paced times. And I mean, I'm come across some amazing, shocking things that if the United States actually went to war with China and moved their fleets to liberate Taiwan and all that, the pace of the war would mean that America's forces in 2 weeks would run out of missiles, run out of anything to shoot, torpedoes, things like that. And the Chinese, who have 10,000 times more manufacturing capability, would just be raining missiles on us. They have a vast, even Russia doesn't have the stock of missiles that the Chinese do. They've got mountains of them. And the Russian industrial base took a quarter century for Putin to rebuild it, not just for military, but everything. And the Russians, after they got rid of Yeltsin, started kicking out all the American darlings, oligarchs that the Americans helped run and turn Russia into a mafia gangster land. Well, Putin slowly, steadily got them out. and the industrial base recovered, and it's at a state that rivals what they were able to produce during World War II when they were being attacked. When, European Russia was conquered by the Germans and they moved 600 factories under fire over the Ural Mountains and set them up in central Siberia, which has now become this incredible hub of industry. And Chelyabinsk and Katerinburg and Perm and all these places have vast, vast industrial might that's and we've lost it. We can't, we don't, I don't think we're one of the top three military powers at all. I think we might be eighth or something if we really get into a real war. We're the bottom of the top three,
Well,
really far
you're bringing
down
up
now.
a
We
good
cannot
point.
sustain our conflicts.
I think you're bringing up a good point. I think that our military can go really quick and be very lethal,
Yeah,
but in a situation where it's drawn out,
attritional,
yeah.
sustained.
And
It's nothing.
this is the exact same problem that Nazi Germany had. They could
Well,
do
it's worse. No,
blitzkrieg.
it's not the same problem. It's even worse. It's even worse because I understand what you're saying because Nazi Germany was fool enough to 80 million people, fool enough to go after 2.5 billion people of the planet, and they had actually, Speer when they were losing, when Speer took over, he was a organizational genius. They were actually towards the end in 44, they were building more tanks and planes than they ever did when they were winning. Um, and sadly, it kind of prolonged the misery. What really took Nazi Germany down was when Ploesti was bombed and when they could no longer have the means to create enough synthetic fuel to run things, run the tanks and all. And then it kind of rapidly collapsed at the end of 44 into 45. But they kept it going. Um, but this is worse. Um, we they're asking Trump's asking them to add another $500 billion to the U.S. budget, $1.5 trillion for the Pentagon, so they can make this future army. We have only one or two factories that build artillery shells in this country. And when they try to increase the load of one of these two, the whole artillery factory blew up last year. So we just have one. I mean, uh, the numbers, I think the numbers of Europe, they can make all the NATO countries together make only 14,000 shells a month. The Russians create 300 to 400,000 a month. I mean, these are the same numbers that Yamamoto was trying to explain to the Japanese government. He says, we got to win this fast. We can't be in a sustained attritional war because I've been to America. We only make 120,000 cars. They make 5 million. We can't. It is production that will bring the winner. And, there were some people who saw that, but, a lot of them went down. And the main problem with Germany was that Hitler knew it. If I ever do my Prophecies of Adolf Hitler book, I have the transcripts of what he said at the Berchtesgaden and the Berghof with all the top generals a few weeks before he launched the invasion of Poland. I was kind of shocked to see to what length he was well aware of what was at stake. He wasn't like, oh, we'll win it in a few weeks and everything's fine. No, he said, if we do not win this war quickly, if we not do it fast and get ourselves bogged down in an attritional war with all these other people because they're bigger than us, they're more material, we have to shock and surprise them all. So we have to fight with fanatical National Socialist views, and we have to fight fast. Otherwise, this country will be utterly destroyed, and all of us in this room will be dead. So I was shocked to see that makes him even more horrible in a way that he had a sense of what was at stake, and he had a sense that he'd end up like he did in the bunker before he started it. And so the whole thing was based on blitzkrieg, rapid war. It only will last so long because after it'll take 2 or 3 years for everybody to get that. I mean, Hitler was winning because he was breaking all the rules of military activity. Um, he was no one could imagine that he would win in 6 weeks, what 4 years and millions of men dying on the Western Front couldn't achieve to capture not only Paris but the whole country, and just do it with 40,000 dead rather than 4 million. Um, so, but the problem is, I mean, Napoleon had the same problem. The French Revolution revolutionized modern warfare, made citizen armies. There never had been citizen armies, drafts, things like that. Mobilization started in 1793 when the Prussians and the Austrians started the first or second coalition that was going to conquer France and bring the Bourbons back into power. And so they literally drafted the nation. It's the first time anybody did that. And they beat them back. The only way that the crown heads and all their 8 or 9 coalitions when Napoleon took over was to beat him, they had to organize their armies like he organized his, where the corps Napoleon would start a campaign. Napoleon, except for 2 campaigns, all of them were defensive, even though he offensively, actively. What he would do is he basically understood that you have to have each corps has to be a little army with cavalry, guns, everything in miniature. 30,000 people rather than 100,000. That's the only way with the big lumbering European armies all in one big mass, eating everything that's in sight. But when you spread out the corps within marching distance of a day between each other, it's less of a burden to find food and forage. And that's very helpful for the civilians as well as for the soldiers. And then as soon as one corps gets contact with where the army is, then everybody's marching towards that place. That basic system is what the Europeans had to learn, and that's how they defeated Napoleon. And in the same way, everybody else started learning blitzkrieg. In fact, the Russians learned how to do blitzkrieg better than the Germans. So so anyway, yeah, I've kind of we've gone on a tangent here, but um it's different. It's different, and also, the Soviets did it under fire. The United States, we were fortunate we could build like ships and things. I mean, when you look at the huge supply fleets that go over the horizon, all these Liberty ships, hundreds of them. And you realize when you see that, when they're getting ready to hit Iwo Jima in the Pacific, or when you see all the 6,000 ships in the channel, pictures of them, most of those ships that you're watching were only built 6 months to 18 months earlier. These vast thousands of ships. Um, We actually, the whole world needs to actually, with the things that we're faced on a global level, we have to bring back that kind of industrial work. And I'm sorry, folks who want to hug trees and do that. You're going to have to just, well, you know what happened? I just heard today that one of these greeny type people, they've kind of escalated from throwing tomato sauce at Van Gogh paintings to, for some reason that's going to save the earth. There was that big blackout in Berlin. Some green activist sabotaged the electric system and knocked out 150,000 homes because it was making electricity out of coal. These are not the people who are going to fix things. They're just idiots. So, but we're going to need to pool together the human race to produce and innovate and see some of these things as long-term struggles for our survival. And unfortunately, in the climate's case, it's only in about 20 years we'll be doing that because we can't escape. the reality. It will be too hard to deny. It's already starting. I've often said, is my main argument to crowds of people, is that my response to the green fools and the people that deny it's there is your life in the next 10 years. That's my argument. What happens to you and yours and your aspirations and your economy and the things you want to do that you can't. The days outside to work if you're in the tropics that you can't because it's just getting too hot and humid. These things are creeping up upon us, and by the 2040s, um, I think the human race may very well see the danger and start to see it as a danger similar to Hitler, similar to Nazism and Imperial Japan, but it's us. Our enemy is our stupidity. Our enemy is not defining the problem. And the problem is actually very simple. It's not fossil fuels. It's not nuclear power. It is CO2 that we are not finding a way to entrap back into the system and methane. That's what it is. So you don't have to destroy your nuclear power plants. You just have to stop making them in a way that are making them too big and egoistic, and they can melt down and cause China syndrome because you're using uranium, which has to be cooled. So you have to put them in water areas where all the people are living because we all need the water source. And you make them too big and operatic when they can actually be mass produced, these reactors, and smaller. And you will not need to put them into water to cool them off because if the water disappears, you have a meltdown. You create reactors that don't melt down. You create reactors that just needs just a little bit of waste uranium or plutonium to trigger in rock salt an atomic or nuclear reaction. You make basically thorium reactors. The Chinese are making them. They're like us in the 1950s. They're having their 1950s moment, like where like Americans we're figuring things out and we're making things happen. You want to see the way it was when I was born. That's what America was like. I've lived long enough to see America as peace, a can do, get stuff done, innovate, optimistic, jump in, find a solution, and it's fun. Chinese are in that now. Probably in another 20, 30 years, 40 years or 80 years, they'll be struggling like we are in our midlife crisis of being a you see, there's a cycle, a very interesting cycle that happens with the orbit of Pluto, and we've just passed through it and are redefining it again in a new orbit of Pluto, especially when it starts around the time when Pluto's in Capricorn, and that's ended. Now it's in Aquarius, where we move from theory of revolution into practice, which is now happening from now through 2044, when Pluto will be in Aquarius. And just like way back 248 years, 250 years before, when it left in 1777, that's when we did most of the work to fight and build the Constitution and win the War of Independence. It's action. Theory went, writing the Declaration of Independence was theory. We were throwing our ideas out, great ideas. But the work to make them happen started the following year when Pluto moved into Aquarius. What also happened at that time is you had the birth of the middle class. Now what we have, so we are part of that. It was 13 colonies. That was a middle class. Britain had a middle class. France had a middle class. And it was localized, though. It took a long time for it to expand from there. But so we were part of that, this new phenomenon of a middle class. And the aristocracies loved it because they made money and worked hard. And the aristocracies would think they could just keep squeezing it and squeezing it and build the Versailles Palace and all of that with the kind of wealth that we were creating until the middle class said, hey, you're not doing anything but sitting on your big ass and on a throne somewhere. You know, no, when the French Revolution said, no, we are now the ruling class. You guys are just constitutional monarchs. And a few years later, they were decapitated. And so, it moves like that. So what happens now after, let's just round it off at 250 years? What we have now in the Pluto return back to the same Aquarian transit after it went all through the zodiac, all 12 signs, is that now it's gone global. Now there's middle classes all over the world, all over the South, all over in China. What's happening is there's a level of every 5 years, a population the size of the United States comes out of poverty and starts being middle class. Now, it has a lot of good things about it. It's more creative, more industrious. The bad thing is that we're adding a pollution level of the United States every 5 years. As more people get more wealth, they end up making more things. They end up uh, uh, requiring more farming, all these things. And of course, we're doing that at the same time that the climate is changing and we're in a sixth mass extinction. There's a lot of dying off going off in the species right now because of the way the climate's changing. And, it doesn't get a lot of news, but it's there. I study it. I've studied it for 50 years. Um, when I became aware of this in 1973, so that the Earth was heating up. And so so now we're going to enter this year, and I'll close this rant on this, is is that this year I'm defining as the year of endings. It's it's a completion year. It can be positive as completions, or it's literally things that you had in your world that you have presumed would never disappear will disappear. For instance, the threat of we have now a Congress and a president, the two of the three branches of our government, who literally have stopped being constitutional. Congress is just looking at Trump like a stunned mullet and not using its powers to say, look, you can't do that. You can't just decide to attack Venezuela. You can't do that. Uh, and you didn't even get a Gulf of Tonkin thing. We didn't even dress this up a little nice. You literally just went off and did it. Um, you can't do that. You are not an emperor. You are an elected president. He's completely lawless. He's doing whatever he feels like. And the Congress is equally responsible for that. I don't think these idiots even know why they've been voted there. I think they're too busy making lots of money and getting corrupt, putting Israel first rather than the United States first, and putting themselves first beyond Israel and the United States. Because, how did all these people become millionaires when they're elected into these office? It's all corrupted. I still say, and I've been saying for 20 years in my writings, take money away from politics. Make there a pool of money where if you run for any office, you have a budget and you can only use that budget. And if you can't budget yourself to become president or even become a dog catcher, you're not going to get the job because you're not up to it. Adapt or die, you know. And so I've been writing since 2008. I started writing about all the things that, for another simple thing, the U.S. Constitution is 4,500 words long. There shall be no bill that will veer from adding other subjects not related to that bill. And if it is not as long as a limit of the U.S. Constitution, it will not be even put on the floor for voting. You guys have got to vote one thing at a time, and we'll streamline it when it's 4,500 words max so that everyone can read it, not a 500-page volume that nobody has time reading. That means that these bureaucrats actually write whatever they want to in these, because frankly, no one, a human being, 400 people in Congress, 100 in the Senate, don't have time to sit down and read that Vogonic bureaucratic bunk. The way they write puts you to sleep. That's the other thing. Be concise in your words or you lose the job. No more bureaucraties. Clear, plain, Nietzscheanly aphoristic, maximistic. Bam, say what you got to say. Don't, you know, it's like if you want to talk about how chaos gives birth to things, don't write 500 pages about it. Be like Nietzsche and says, out of chaos, dancing stars are born. Boom, there. Next sentence. Boom, concise, clear. Only people who know how to write should write bills. If we could write the U.S. Declaration of Independence, if we could struggle and forge to write the Constitution, this, so little things like that. The other thing too is you got to get the money out of it. No money. Only people who want to serve their country can, certainly they will have a job, they will have a salary, but none of this stuff where, oh, okay, if I get this bill here and I get these guys their bill, I'll get this nice job afterwards. None of that. If you are a public servant and elected, uh, you're not going to use that as a jumping point to some military industrial complex firm or Grumman or something like that. No, if you serve 10-year, there's a 10-year moratorium. You can't work for the people that you had to go back and forth with as a senator or a congressman. The other thing that would be nice to change is it was understandable that we could have a Supreme Court that ruled for life because most people were dead by 55 when that was happening, but not a good thing now. So I would say that the Supreme Court also goes through a period like you have 6 years for the Senate, 4 years for the House. Well, 2 years, sorry, 2 years for the House, 4 years for the president. And I would not have term limits. We, the people, decide the term limit of everyone. Every 4 years for the president, every 2 years for the Congress, every 6 years for the Senate. And there are certain things, and the Russians are showing this. You know the reason why Vladimir Putin's been there over a quarter century? Because how the heck could he have just a 4 year Russian president, 5 year? How the heck could he fix the problems of Russia that had happened to him? Sometimes you need somebody there for 25, 30 years because it's generational change. And he's going to end up probably in another term. So he'll be like 35 for years or something in as president. And it's the only way they pulled Russia out of the dump. We're in a dump now. It's our turn to get out of the dump of ruined empire, and return to being a republic, a constitutional republic. Res publica means a system of laws. What we have now, and that's one of the things that changed in this first week, we have a dictatorship. The United States is not the United States without the Constitution. So the fact that everybody's now making it up as they go along and using power as they can get away with it is not, this is not America anymore. It's a dictatorship because dictators do that. Roman emperors do that. And which brings me to I'll finish with the thing I wrote back in 2015, opening one of my chapters, chapter 9 of Trump for President Astrological Predictions. On chapter 9, called The Emperor's New Pose, I wrote, Donald Trump, Donald Trump would make a better emperor than a president. He has many of the traits of a good emperor. Successful empires are essentially built by accomplished real estate conquerors. Emperors of state, like real estate developers of the Empire State, New York, love to put their names on edifices. St. Petersburg is really Tsar Petersburg, his city. Just like Trump's towers of egoistic grandeur rising out of the forest of skyscrapers on Manhattan Island are branded with his last name with all the brass he can muster. You know, so he's gone back to Roman dictator. I mean, some of my sources think he's Caligula. I think he's more Nero. I think Scott Ritter calls him President Caligula now. I think I have to push back a bit. No, he's more like Nero. You know, I won't get into why. There's a lot more weird stuff. And Nero basically had a fever when he was a teenager, and it made him mad. He wasn't mad like that until then. Then he, of course, made emperor, and you know, even though there's the Epstein issue going on with Trump, I don't think there's any way he could ever match the sordid debauchery that Caligula could. In fact, at one moment of his madness, he was made lovers with his sister, and then he thought he was Jupiter, so he started dressing up as Jupiter. And at one fit of madness, he actually, because she was pregnant with his child, he said, "Well, I'm Jupiter. I'm going to eat my baby," just like Jupiter did, and he did. Now Trump won't do that. So, but he's more of the Nero, thinking himself as a great artist. I mean, Nero had this almost sounded like Trump in some of the things he said. He was like, I'm a great actor, I'm a great artist, I can build all that. I'm so great. Did I tell you how great I am? I'm great already. It's like, it's really great. It's really good. It's wonderful. It's very beautiful. I'm great. He was really, I'll have to write some funny thing about where I make the comparison that actually, and yeah, and when Nero had to take the poison, he said, "Oh, what a great loss to humanity." It's he drinks the poison. Um, yeah, so, and also he was quite a builder. He built a lot of amazing things, and advanced the richer parts of Rome and was helped by the fire to burn out the slums. Um, yeah, but anyway, so there we are. There was a wild, wonderful mystery tour we just went through. Lots of different things.
Well, I want to just remind the audience that if you have a question for John, please type it in the text, the chat there, or you can join X Spaces and ask through X Spaces by asking for the mic. But we don't have a question at the moment here.
They're all kind of out there going,
Well, sometimes people are a little shy, but as we're waiting for people to type in questions, maybe we can explain what the the ratings are and your periodical that's on your website.
the ratings.
No, the readings.
Oh, right,
Your
yes.
readings for
Well, actually, before I do that, I want to go through the list of just a few more things that
yeah, go ahead.
happened.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of what I was saying was about that. I mean, the fact that we are actually exploring being a dictatorship right now, that we're exploring. And by the way, a year ago, almost to a day, I predicted that Trump is dead serious about Greenland and he will get it. And I have some quotes in the new thing about that. And I laid out all the ways in which about a year ago, the things that would make the deal coercive and like, and frankly, the only deal really that is left then for Denmark is to save face, save NATO, because NATO would go down in 2 months if there's not some kind of Louisiana purchase of Greenland, which is in the works now. Because the NATO people are saying to the Danes, look, just bite the bullet, sell it to them. You're not doing anything with Greenland anyway, and it is over there in the North American continent. They do have a kind of point, and he's doing his kind of threats that he usually does, but I think he's always hoped that the threats, the invasion, all that stuff would get them to, because of course so he's come up. He said, "Look, we'll buy it, but we determine the price." It's up to you to say yes or no. And if you say no, we'll take it. And that'll be the end of you and NATO because we're 75% of all the funds. We'll pull all that out and NATO will disappear. And, this is the Emperor Trump saying, look, you're our vassals. If we go back to Rome, this whole thing you're projecting that Russia's going to invade you, which is not true, um, well, now you can feed that stupid fear that doesn't exist, and so he's kind of manipulating that fear because really, there's absolutely no way that the Russians are going to do that. If the Russians were forming a 16 million man army with 100,000 tanks, 100,000 jets, a million hypersonic missiles, yeah, that's what you need to take Europe and occupy it. But as I said in times before, it's not in the DNA of the Russians. They have never invaded and conquered Europe. Never. It's been Europe that has always tried to conquer Russia. Now, Russia has come and helped when they're asked, but we're talking about where the Russians would decide going totally against their whole genetic and mental outlook on history. Oh, today we're gonna invade Europe and conquer it. Like a country of 150 million people in 11 time zones, that's a lot to take care of, is going to take on the rest of Europe, which two-thirds of Europe, Russia being the one-third in the east of Europe. And we're going to then cat herd 500 million Europeans when we can't even. How big is the Russian army going to be by next year? Because they aren't amassing more, actually preparing for what Europe might do and attacking Russia. Because they've already said we're going to be. These idiots have already said by 2028, 2030, we'll be fighting a war with Russia. So they just already said it. And then when Putin heard that, he said, "Well, we'll be ready. We are ready now." He's one of the rare times where he got kind of scary because he's usually very measured about what he says. But whenever he says something, it's not idle. It's very well thought out. And if he says something like I'm about to say, you better damn well be listening, Europeans. He said, well, if you've already said you're going to go to war with us in a few years, we are ready already for that. And we'll be even more ready later. And um, And if you will have to strike us first, but our response will be total. In fact, we may have a hard time negotiating with you because you won't be there anymore. That's about as close as Putin ever gets to kind of saying, yeah, well, you'll all be ash. We won't have anyone to negotiate with. So don't do this. Um, so So anyway, Trump's kind of playing it from the other side, and it's really odd because in some oddball way, because he's always changing and changing around, he is there's a part of him that would like to have this idea of no more superpowers or global hegemon, but three great powers of the world that have their own turfs, you know. But then again, he has this other side where he wants to still remain Atlas holding up all the superpowers and stuff. And this is where he's so schizophrenic as a Gemini. He has Uranus with his sun, which means Mr. Surprise even unto himself, and Mr. Going left field, going this way, going that way. And as he gets older, it's just getting more erratic. Um, so so basically, Trump's going to get what started in this first week. He's going to get Greenland in 2 months. It's going to be part of the United States. Go ahead. You got a question?
Yeah, it dovetails into what you're talking about with
Okay.
Greenland, but it's more focused on Canada. So Kent asks,
Okay. Oh, yeah, I was about to get there. Perfect timing.
all right, so Kent asks, what's going to happen to Canada?
Well, if you what's going to happen is it is quite a conundrum to consider for their new prime minister and Canada because Canada's on the list too. And what's going to happen in a couple months if the Danes are smart enough to listen to their other NATO partners and keep NATO alive by keeping America happy, the American emperor happy, is when that has now got stars and stripes all over it. One thing will happen is I think the United States will be the second largest landmass country in the world when that continental size, almost continental sized island is a part of the United States. And notice what the map does. You've got the western flank, there's Alaska. Now on the left flank, there's American Greenland. And there's the Northwest Passage that runs between Quebec and Greenland, out Newfoundland. So America will be controlling this side of the Polar Sea. And that will be leverage on Canada. Um, it in a world such as the one we're entering now, where things are changing topsy-turvy, and it's just going to keep happening. This year kind of defines the whole new abnormal of that. Um, it still lingers, this long desire of the United States, which was to attack Canada and take it into the United States. I mean, this happened in the American Revolution. I think there was a sortie into the St. Lawrence estuary of colonial armies coming out of Ticonderoga in New York. It it didn't succeed. And then in 1812, the War of 1812, when the British tried one last time to take back the colonies, um, it was an even bigger invasion that almost succeeded to take Canada. Um, the same kind of ideas that make people want to take Russia, all the natural resources of Russia. Well, why should they have it all? We need it more. Any criminal mind always reasons their need is more. Oh, I stole that purse because I need her money more than she does. And so I would think a lot of people were looking at the vastness of Canada and all of its timber then and later, its oil and natural gas and all of that. And then you've got the issue that Canada has, where, back in mid 1990s, Canada almost broke up. The Quebecois had a national election to decide secession to become a country, which would be right in the middle. The Maritimes would be cut off, Newfoundland, Labrador would be cut off, and there'd be this big blue Quebec in the middle that was his own kind of French Canadian country. I mean, you got to remember, well, of course, Americans don't remember, they don't study their history, but Canadians understand that, it's a bilingual country because, there for centuries there, Acadia was one of the biggest colonies that Louis XIV and others had in Canada. And so it is a nation of two people. It's bilingual, French and English for that reason. I think the Canadians have done an amazing attempt to keep it together, but it almost broke apart in 1995. I remember watching Saturday Night Live when the election was happening, and there was Alanis Morissette, who's from Ottawa, and she took out her Canadian flag and started dancing around, the maple leaf flag, not the blue, the sacre bleu, French Quebecois, even though she's French Canadian. And she was like making a statement as a French Canadian. Oh, let's stay together.
I saw her in concert in the 80s, late 80s.
I bumped into her one day.
Really?
Yeah, I bumped into her I might have already told this story, but I bumped into her just a serendipitous moment at the Bodhi Tree bookstore that was in West LA. And I was there in 1999 in May going to at a release of my Messiah's book with big posters and everything at this huge book convention in the LA Center. And after it was over, I went there to check out what was happening in the bookstores. And I'm looking in the main table at all the newest editions, and there's this beautiful young woman with beautiful long auburn, well, not auburn, but brown tresses. And I looked over and I kind of went, Alanis Morissette. I had a fan meltdown. It's good it happened because I've had to deal with people melting down. You're done. You know, it's but I kept it. In fact, I had to make sure that I was holding the book and pretending I was reading it. And I had to make sure that I looked at it and make sure it wasn't upside down. I was totally like rabbit Tharn, you know. And I was torn because I love her music. I love her poetry. I had her CDs, everything like that. So I was a fan, you know, and I loved her videos. They're fantastic, you know. And her kind of words of wisdom that she comes out with. And she's interesting Gemini, you know. So she's many people in one person, as Geminis can be. You make a life with a woman who's a crowd. And anyway, so I'm seeing, and so she's walking around and she's seeing me, and then she notices I have this long ponytail, kind of hides in the back, and she kind of went, "Oh," she made this sound like, "Oh," you know, because she wasn't expecting the long ponytail halfway down my back. And so I'm going, trying to pretend she's not there and it's not working. And so I kind of notice that she goes all the way around the table and then she makes a decision. With her back turned to me, she suddenly flipped around and walked right up to me, right up close and said, "Hi," like that. And I looked up and I went, "Hi," and then walked off. The highs were speaking volumes. It was a wonderful moment. It's the only time I've ever run into somebody I'm really into.
No, no, I once in a while I'll run into someone that is famous, in Hollywood,
Yeah.
but New York is kind of like that, especially
Yeah.
Union Square area.
Dakota.
Sometimes in Tribeca.
Yeah, and the Dakota. I mean, I would have loved to have been there and bumped into Leonard Bernstein when he still lived there, but that didn't happen. On Central Park. Yeah. But you know, so anyway,
So we take over Canada. So the United
well,
States
yeah,
take
well, you know,
over Canada.
I
We get
say that
We get Morissette.
yeah, the Viceroy. I don't know what she did with it, but she lives down in outside of Oakland or something with her husband and kids and all. I love how she's always been a witness of every chapter of her life. Now that she's middle aged and all, still writing marvelous stuff and you know and dealing with middle age and she's gotten a little rounder now and you know and but she seems to I imagine even as an old lady she's going to have insights when she's in her final chapters of her life and she'll be writing songs about it and she's a very wise, beautiful being. And anyway, so yeah, Canada. Well, the problem is America. It's not just America that wants to do that. Now, you know, you Albanians, Albertans, and British Columbians and Yukonians. Um, you've openly thought about joining Seattle, Washington, and Oregon in kind of a Douglas fir flagged uh, nation. You know, the West, I mean, a lot of people in Western Canada really don't feel like they get a fair shake from Ontario. And you know, if Quebecois had broken out of the Union, I think in mid 90s Canada would have broken up and America would probably have taken on a lot of the Canadian provinces as new states. I think I think that was very likely. And so that's out there. I mean, my God, if Greenland can even be, we're getting to a point soon now where Greenland's going to go over to the United States for maybe $2 billion. You know, larger than the Louisiana Purchase ever could dream of being. And with immense resources and all that. I mean Trump's going back into the 1700s and the 1800s. You know, he's kind of he's like Napoleon in those regards. And
Well, I was watching a podcast from Ian Brenner, Dr. Brenner, and he's usually negative on Trump. I wouldn't say he's a never Trumper, but he's usually negative on Trump.
Mhm.
And he kept on saying in his podcast about how Trump is just focused in kind of like this old world kind of mentality. But I'll tell you what, because of this new cycle that we've been talking
Yeah.
about,
There's parallels.
right? That maybe old is new,
Yeah.
you know, and I
Old
think
is
that
the old is in old is renewed, the old in the rhymes of history.
right. And so the part of the intelligentsia that's part of the paper belt. There's this term called the paper belt, where it's basically Wall Street, the politicians, the lawyers, they're ones that are making the decisions and determining how the economy should go. And so they ship the jobs out overseas, and so we're a very litigious society. We have bills, like you said, that are 1,000 pages long and whatever. So we
And it's not one bill, it's 100 bills in
right, right.
one.
So we are professional paper pushers now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe these professional paper pushers, Ian Brenner is one of them, maybe they're just wrong. Like for example, when the tariffs were announced in April, and I cover this every day, but almost every single economist was wrong on what was going to happen because of the tariffs.
Yep.
Almost every single one of them. And this was brought up in the podcast with Ian Brenner, and he admitted that he was wrong on the assessment, the the intelligentsia assessment of how Trump is wrong on this. All right. So when we have the paper pushing belt saying that Trump's old mentality with the Don Roe doctrine now, um, maybe the intelligentsia is wrong and that Trump's right.
Well, not only that, it's one of the things that Trump, his instincts, this is a bit of a deeper dive of him playing the crowd. What's actually happened in the last week is America has finally stopped BSing about being a democracy and being a country of laws and freedom and democracy. It's a new Rome. It's a dictator. He's even talking about the Pax Americana. Trump is talking about it. And you know what? It registers with people because we've been BSing ourselves in the United States that we're noble and all that. No, we're not. We're just like the empire builders. The problem is we've come to really act like the robber barons and the empire builders, not at the beginning of our cycle of imperium, but at its end. It would be like Rome finally trying to be an empire in 400 AD, and it just falls on its face because the Huns go in and everybody comes in, the Vandals and everybody comes in and takes it over because we're like the Rome. We're not like a Rome starting at the turning of BC to AD. Uh, we're not that Rome where we are a republic based on Rome's republic. The, this is not a democracy, not an Athenian democracy that our founding fathers and mothers put together. This is the same. The Senate and the House and all that setup is just like Rome because they felt that when Washington and Adams were looking at the Greek democracy, it wouldn't work. It worked for a city-state, not for a sprawling large country. Because, we had dreams of taking all the other stuff too. It wasn't just a new idea after we became a country.
Mm.
Um, and so we are Rome That's why we like so many Roman films. That's why Gladiator was, I mean,
Well,
people liked Commodus as much as they, and, and that was a fantastic performance of Joaquin Phoenix.
there were psychologists that were mentioning that the average guy in the United States, the average male, thinks about the Roman Empire at least once a week.
So, so he's on, this is the genius of his instincts as being a channel. He is doing, and in an odd way, this is far more honest of who we are than all this BS about us being democratic and following laws and all. No, tell that to the Indians. Tell that to the Mexicans when we took a third of their country. This is the real America. That's the side of America that America has. And in an odd way, if it can be out in the open now, that we're basically, we kind of like the idea of making an American empire out of the whole Western Hemisphere.
Well, in a strange way, if the archaeologists are right, and I think they are, the Vikings, founded North America,
Yep.
before Columbus.
I'm very proud of that because
Yeah.
I have a whole lot of
Right.
Viking blood in me.
Okay, so
All three of
so,
them, Swedes, Danes, and North Norwegian.
so when you think about the conquering of, let's say, Britain,
You know?
we
Oh
may
yeah.
be still, we probably
The
have more.
Hogues were in there. We
Yeah,
were at Hastings.
so the United States ethos is probably more Viking than anything else.
That's why we make such great Viking movies and Viking series, because deep
Yeah.
down we kind of like that whole idea. But then look at it, a lot of Nordic blood, a lot of Germanic blood. They were literally twins to the Vikings when they were all wild. And, Thor was Donner, Odin was Wotan, same religion. And yeah, and I got it. Fortunately, my brother did the genetics, so I didn't have to go through it. But we basically, the core of the Hogues are Swedish Vikings and Russians, Danish Vikings and Yorkshire, Yarwick, Northern English. And the name comes from Normandy, which were the Norwegian Vikings that loved Normandy so much that within 2 generations they literally assimilated, learned French, and became French Vikings living in Normandy because compared to the vastness and the fjords and the cold, it was like paradise with a little bit of that home of a lot of rain and moody skies and stuff like that. And then the Normans, then when they invaded England, 1/3 of the English language is French. It makes it so easy for me to translate Nostradamus. It's amazing in these translations how many words like rendezvous, commence, we just consider they are part of our language. And if the Normans had been defeated at Hastings by the Anglo-Saxons who ran England before they came, um, you wouldn't have had Shakespeare. You would have an English language that sounds Anglo-Saxon. The ancient Anglo-Saxon language might not have changed that much, and we'd all be speaking bello quem es song gone forth, and saying Anglo-Saxon speech because of we would not have.
Can you read Beowulf in Old English?
Yeah, oh yes,
Really?
yeah, it's out in Old English. Yes, it's out in Anglo-Saxon. It's
No,
out
no.
in
You can read it
No,
yourself?
no, no, no.
Oh, okay.
But I love hearing the Lord of the Rings trilogy was so uh, did a lot of little details that would have delighted Tolkien because the Rohirrim, the the cavalry that are Viking cavalry in his thing, there's a lot of things in the book and in the movie too, especially the director's cut, where you're hearing Anglo-Saxon because he had
Mm.
them all speak Anglo-Saxon. That was his one of his specialties. As he taught Anglo-Saxon in college, and there's that scene when Erwin is they're burying uh, uh, Theoden's son who died, and they're of this the Similmunda, all the beautiful white flowers. It's one of the most beautiful scenes. It's really when I fell in love with these movies. One was when the eagle came and saved Gandalf from the Iron
Yeah.
Tower. And
Yeah.
it was flying over a sunrise and fast sunrise across white cap craggy mountains. I went, oh man, I'm in love. I'm in love. But the other one that really got me before I saw the director's cut was a scene that came after the funeral. I hadn't seen the funeral yet, where they're outside and the king has cut off a little white flower and it floats down into the hedge and Simo Munda, ever has it grown on the graves of our ancestors. And then I mean, there's a red tinge in the sunset, and they're in the shadow, and there's Gandalf standing there with his staff just being there for him. And he says, no, no, the man who should have won an Academy Award just for his own performance. I think they all should have won an Ensemble Academy Award for that, which didn't exist. But the guy who played Theoden did a magnificent acting job in that. And so he says, no one should have to bury their son. A father should have to bury his son. He said, I use that as a trigger. And he starts breaking up. He starts crying. And then the music that Howard Shore wrote for him, kind of kneeling down in the grass, crying with that incredible distance in the walls of the place, that that is the most beautiful sound of a morning choir of mourning, of somebody, broken mourning. It made it beautiful because he's brokenhearted and he's down there, and then there you got um, Gandalf saying, um, he starts speaking Anglo-Saxon prayer. He says, Theothorden, Geosu. And then suddenly there's this whole thing that breaks the magic where he looks back, and there's the two kids on the horse that ran away from all the raping and pillaging, and this fantastic wall of mountain in that sunset. And then, the little girl kind of wakes up because they both fell asleep on the horse, and the boy falls off the horse. One of the most amazing things I ever saw. But to see it now with the director's cut, where you see everybody thronging out of Meduselde, and there's the body and all the beautiful helmets and armor and the detail. Peter Jackson's a Scorpio. Scorpios know how to do detail right. Get it all right so that you don't even know it's right. You just feel it's right until you see it three or four times. All the little things that were there. And
Well, he
all
had
the,
his own. He had his own leather shop
yeah. It
and
took two
blacksmith.
years to prepare the whole thing before he actually shot anything. He
Yeah. Well,
walked through, he made
the
models.
the
Yeah,
the actors were saying
that's
that
a
there was
Scorpio.
detail. There was detail within the costumes
I'm a Scorpio, so
that would never be seen by the actual camera.
that's right. It's that kind of attention to
Yeah.
detail. Like I used to paint miniature figurines in my early 20s, and I made a living $6 a head doing them for war gamers. But I had my own little thing where I actually painted out and created an entire French line regiment. And I mean, people will say, "What is it about this thing that makes it more magical?" It's like a presence in it. I said, "Well," pulled up one of the little soldiers and said, "Do you notice that the buttons for the infantry are copper and the buttons for the sergeants are brass?" I literally did every little the detail. It's not that it's out there to say, "Look at me, look at me." What it does is it creates a backdrop where your subconscious picks it up. It's just like if you're reading a book and you might be thinking, oh, I'm having an insight about something and it's three lines down. You don't just look at the words just with that. There's a part of your eyes that are actually looking at things you haven't read yet in the page and you're starting to think about it. And then there it is because your eyes are also somehow absorbing that in an unconscious way. But so so in a way, my set of soldiers were like, well, the magic is that they literally, the sergeants have the brass and red, and the soldiers have this, and even the flags I did, which were like only this big, very small, because it was 25 millimeter. So they're about, well, I can't do it that way, about that high. Um, and well, what happens is I have my short sight is really bad now, but my far sight is still above normal. Thank God. I like looking at things beyond in the distance, but you could read the gold um, threads that were written into the flags of all the battles. You
Really?
could take a magnifying glass. I did it without a magnifying glass because what I did is I used to say I always like mixing senses. I literally could feel my sight, inner sight in my fingers,
Hmm.
and that touch became sight. And
Interesting.
so I just would know, and I'd be looking at it like this, and I would just, but most of my attention was in the tip of my consciousness was in the tip of my finger, making the touch with just a sliver of wood or something like that. Make a little brass button that has enough of a bubble on it so it looks like a button round off the flat boot. And and I have applied that kind of I'm double Scorpio, so that attention to detail, I apply that in my writing, and I apply that in other things. Um, eh, anyway,
No,
I still have a little. I still. Let's see. I, yes, here they are. I've never done this before. I have a couple Listerine boxes that have the few that I kept, such so I can show you. It's not just me making up stories. It really is the case. Okay, here's one of the flags. This is, where am I? Can't see it. There he is. Okay.
oh,
Hard to do it when it's all backwards, but
wow. Yeah, yeah, I see it.
yeah, there's the flag. I did that all by hand. This is made, made the staff, everything. And then I'll show you something else. The Oh yes, here was the black sim guy from the Imperial Guard that's playing the cymbals. Let's see, where is it?
Wow.
Yeah, very little attention. All the little gold things on his red pants and all that. I did that by hand.
What is it? Just made out of aluminum?
No, it's actually plastic
Plastic? Oh,
because I could carve it. I could do carvings with it because when I did the Russians, they didn't make Russians, so I had to make the Kiva hat by gouging the French shako.
oh.
And
But
so
when
my Russians are really are amazing because I had to really make them. I had to make the sleeping bag and stuff. There he is.
yeah, when we were
See the
kids, we
kiwa and the tassels. Yeah, 1812 set and then the little bag.
wow.
Yeah,
When we
because I
were
did a Russian regiment as well.
we used to do Dungeons and Dragons, and we had these different figurines for the different monsters
Yeah,
that we'd paint, but they were metal. They weren't plastic.
and I do the horses. Uh, he's
Yeah. Wow.
and then and here's the you can see the webbing. Where is it? Okay. The webbing and then that little sleeping bag that he has wrapped around him, you know.
Wow.
And then I also did some British. These are a little more banged up, but you can see what they he's all yellow there. That's all fallen off. That's the downside not using lead. Um, but I had to make those and um let's see. Oh, and God, the Russian flags. This is amazing. I forgot about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So how long would it take you to do that?
years.
Years. I mean,
Yeah, it took me about 2 years because there
two.
were like 800 of them or 1,000 of
No, no,
them.
just to do one, just to do one. But like
Yeah,
that.
no, 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 a regiment.
No, but if you were to paint just
Oh
that.
no, no. Well, you see, I used to, I used to make. Oh, I could make a couple hundred a week
Oh wow.
because I did it assembly line like. I
Hmm.
would go through just like editing a manuscript. You go through first time you do the a wider background colors, and as with each editorial pass, you get more into the detail, the nitty gritty and stuff. The big picture, then it gets into the details. And so I just adapt what I did as a painter of these and into my writing. I'm basically same with composing. When I started my opera career, I had to choose between I couldn't put all my energy in I couldn't put it in two things. I had to put it all in one, being a composer, or the other being an opera singer. So I decided to drop. And it was interesting because I was starting to work and I had a piano teacher to play my stuff, and it was like, whoa, look at this. But I had to let that go because I had to put it all in the gamble of being an opera singer into opera singing. But it's yeah, so when I write, I don't I write like a composer. My books and all are like my symphonies or my operas. My words are my notes, and weaving themes lot with the influence I've had with late German romantics, like with Bruckner or Wagner. We have a whole musical language, which Howard Shore, by the way, he based that on Wagner, the music. And it's really is a cinema. If Wagner had been alive to see the lighting of the beacons, that sequence, the music is that was a perfect Gesamtkunstwerk moment, when the first light, the beacon has lit, and and it's rising, dun, dun, ba, ba, la, and then they do that where you see it. Finally, there's all these guys on the mountain. They see the light in the distance, and then the camera swings 160 degrees around them waving back and lighting their thing, and then it finally comes around till you see the distant mountain over the mists light up, and then da 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 da, and then suddenly the camera makes you fly over the edge of a mountain range, and you hear the Gondor theme, da 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 da, and then you see it from the back. Da, and it breathes with the music. Da, da, da. And then another angle as they're coming with more of the beacons lighting, and then it ends. Da, 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 da. And there's Strider sitting there having his breakfast, and suddenly he looks up and he sees that the beacon for Rohirrim is lit. And he throws the thing away and it jump, dump, dump, and he runs in and says, the beacons are lit. Gondor calls for aid. And there's a tension because what is Theoden going to do? Is he going to throw it off, or he just looks? He's kind of shocked because he's one with him. And then he gets sober, and Gondor and Rohirrim shall, come, and then the music comes in. It is See, this is what Wagner wrote before there were movies. His music dramas were the music came first and as like the great universal thing. The characters were the 1/10 conscious, and the orchestra was their id, and all these different themes. It's remarkable stuff. He basically revolutionized. He created. A lot of people say he was the creation of modern music with Tristan. That he was the beginning of modern music back in the 1850s when he was writing Tristan. So anyway, yes. So
Well,
there's me jumping all over the place.
it's okay. We've reached that time.
It's who I
I
am.
I want to remind the audience that the link in the description will take you to John's website. So please click that link, sign up for a periodical or a reading. John, you want to explain a little bit about? what they would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the reading. Well, Cantu wrote asked that question about Canada. We must have done almost 4 hours in the reading, and we started late. So, um, yeah. So, but that was a great reading. It's always a lot of fun. It's a journey. What we did in that reading is a lot of times I give people a choice. In the first time they see me and they get off to the first 40 minutes free are about to end. I then say to them, or I say it at the beginning of the reading, I said, do you already have a subscription to Zoom? Because there's two choices. We can take breaks every 40 minutes and take a break, get up, stretch, do what you need to do, come back. And I find that these little pauses, about sometimes two or three on average, there's 40, then 10 minutes, 40, then 10 minutes, 40. And um, it's a nice reset. And then I can go deeper in the stuff that I said in the first 40 by going deeper into studying your astrology, your body, mind, vehicles, Kelly Blue Book, and set up for the deeper plunge, which is the Celtic Cross using Osho's Zen Tarot deck. And um, it there's a thing that happens in these readings which is quite mysterious. And it's always a surprise when it happens. I don't know what it is that I do with this presence, but you will find that time stops. It doesn't go faster, it just stops. And what happens is the stop goes deeper every 40 minutes. And the way the sensation of the reading is 40 minutes go by like that. And already it's warning, time out. And it felt like it was 15 minutes or 10 minutes, but it was 40 minutes. And then each new 40-minute gets even more fast or still until it's just like, that was just 5 minutes ago, wasn't it? No, no. All that stuff that came through is not, it gets more still. So, so that's a beautiful experience because you're literally having an experience of Einstein's theory of relativity. The same thing that he said in cocktail parties in Princeton when people would ask me, "Can you talk to me like I'm not a scientist? Can you explain the theory of relativity to me?" Why, sure. It's actually very easy, he said, to explain what it is. It's really about how you live through 1 hour. If you're with your wife, 1 hour is an eternity. But if you are with your mistress, it's too short. And he had mistress, so he was speaking from authority. So, and that's the theory. So join me in a reading, and you're also going to have a phenomenon of the theory of relativity actually happen. It's maybe in a way you're already feeling it with the way we've done this, and you know what, 2 hours have just flown by. Seems like it just happened, at least to me. So that's the one thing, the readings. And when you go to hogueprophesy.com, HOGUEPROPHECY.com, you will find at the top of the website, uh, have a Hogue reading. And so what you do is there's a little link to a mail to email, all you need to do is put Hogue reading in the subject line, and all the thousands of emails that I get, I'll see it. And then I'll get back to you and give you the times that are available and an overview of what the reading entails, how to pay for it, and online, and then we'll set up a day and we'll do it. And so so that's the other thing. But the other thing I also do is the Hogue Prophecy Report, which I've been reading little passages from. I'm different in my literate side. I mean, I'm kind of in my talkative side, I'm kind of all over the place, but in my literate side it's very like there it is, all in nice form and all flowing. So there's the two sides of me, and the the, these are illustrated. I try to make humor of things as much as I can. But and this set of five which are going to be released in a couple of days. It's really amazing five articles. They're jam-packed with stuff. I wasn't even planning to write the Hogue Prophecy Report until the end of February, but on midnight on New Year's Eve, I said, "Oh my God, it wants it to be now." So I had to put everything aside, and I literally wrote almost 6,000 words in the first day because I thought I was going to be able to. I had to get it out fast, this one article, because of things that were about to hit, and I wanted to get it out. But then when they hit, and then I changed the whole gestalt of what I was doing to a more cadence, more articles, doing that would be able to kind of assess what already happened in this busy week and now where it's going. See, the way I write is I'm not in this bulletin, this report. I don't write. I'm not somebody that gets on and does an article every day, and I'm not a topical person. I'm a prophetical person. That means that I will kind of take the time to kind of get a basic template of important events that are happening in the month or so, or that we have, month or two. And then I will take you ahead to what's coming next in the months and years ahead from these events. So, my work is not to be an episodic, always there to entertain you every few days or every day. Mine is where I come and take you to a jump to deeper parts of the future and also assess the things that I've said earlier that are documented and accurate. So, or when I'm not accurate. Um, so, and then we try to find out where that went. But I'm about on average 80% accurate on what I predict and more sometimes. And that's pretty good. I'm okay with that average.
Well, the ones that are watching and the ones that will be listening to the replays here, please make sure you click the link. The link is in the description of this video and all the videos that I've done with John. That will take you to his website. So please sign up for the readings and for the periodical. So, John, that's the end of our show. So, thank you very much, everybody, for listening.
Yes.
And the ones that have asked questions, thank you very, very much. And we do these shows usually every other week, every 2 weeks or so. So please join us in our next show. And the ones that don't know, you can also join the show next time on X Spaces and ask your question live through asking for the mic on X Spaces. So, uh, John, before we go, you have to say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye to everybody.
All right, everybody, thank you very much for joining. I greatly appreciate it. Please share the links. Also, make sure you click the thumbs up, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.